No Game, No Life, Volume 5, Prologue, Part 2. Clammy and Fuel drew their matching hoods down over their faces. They weren't here, and they never had been. That's how it became. Hiding from view, they leaped from the top floor of Lord Barthel's mansion. Faster than gravity, the right feel wove took hold of their bodies and carried them high in the sky. Through the wind into the night. Only the red moon, the light of the stars, and the lamps of the city lit the scenery below them brilliantly. A city in the forest. A city of green, woven of astonishingly refined magic. It was a sight with which Clammy was quite familiar. But even if it had been the first time she was seeing it, it would have been indication enough that Elvengard's civilization was on another level entirely. The two flitted through the sky above, their hoods flapping. Clammy, why, you were amazing! From building to building, bounding roof to roof, Fuel gushed. You really took out that old scoundrel without my aid. Goodness, I was so concerned. Never mind that, Fee. Are you all right? It's not a bad feeling to have you concerned about me. You certainly are growing, Clammy. Fuel responded with a silly smile, while maintaining the right allowing them to glide through the air. But the gem in her forehead had lost its sparkle and appeared cloudy due to her profligate use of magic. Clammy could see this clearly, even in the dim light. Lord Ron Barthel and his butler, Fritz, a tricaster and a duocaster. They might not have been the best of the best, but they were up there. But, Clammy pondered, with a glance at the girl dancing through the air beside her, Fio Nirvalan, the head of one of the few truly great families of Elvengard, which Clammy served as a slave. Fio had attended the towering white tree of the greatest magic school in the nation, the Garden, and failed and withdrawn. Those who didn't know her, with her white link tattoos and beginner boosters, sneered. She was the first incompetent since the birth of the House of Nirvalan. Scrap, they said, but Clammy, who knew Feel was only feigning incompetence, sneered at the sneerers. Feel was the greatest talent since the inception of the House of Nirvalan. Gold. This she knew. Feel had never particularly made a show of her true ability to Clammy, but still. She'd cast a spell of disguise on herself and Clammy, and she'd cast a spell of blocked awareness on both Barthel and on Fritz to prevent them from catching on. On top of that, she defended Clammy an oracle card from a distance, and what's more, she'd taken on Fritz in their game. She had been orchestrating 6 spells at once. Hexcaster, without a doubt, she was better than the best. No, wait. In that game with Soren Shiro a while back, the Othello match using Jabril's core, Feel had woven a right capable of controlling the astronomical power wielded by rank 6, Flugel. Taking this into account, it was enough to imagine that she was a mage of whom better than the best didn't even cut it. A mage to be welcomed as an honorary instructor, even by the same garden that had expelled her. It was the very least they could do. Why, what's the matter, Clammy? Their golden locks fluttering in the wind, and her white skin glowing in the darkness. Feel's smiling form was more dazzling than the light of the sun. She was a flower of Nirvalan, born to a pedigreed house and concealing extraordinary intellectual and magical talent. Wherever she walked, a future of nothing but sparkles could have been her due, had she not herself thrown it all away. Yes, she had refused that promised future, concealing her nature, playing the incompetent. She had chosen, of all things, to fight back at her homeland, her country, her race. All for one person, just one, none other than, it's nothing, for her friend. Softly dropping her eyes, Clammy exhaled, to free the slaves. Certainly it had a nice ring to it, but it was tantamount to freeing the national secrets of Elvengard. To free the fairies, for instance, who had been exploited for high-level magic, was equivalent to selling their secret weaponry to another country. If that happened, the dwarves of Hardenfell could hardly pass up that chance. Elf would most likely lose the continent that they've been quarreling with Dwarf over for nearly a millennium. In the worst case, they'd go on to see the country split, and what lay at the end of that did not bear discussion. But if it was for Clammy, Veal's homeland could go to ruin for all she cared. She boasted, and so she truly thought, and in fact, she'd already taken any number of perilous steps to that end. Howard Veal. Clammy felt deep gratitude as well as a certain feeling akin to admiration, which transcended race and age. But then what about herself? Clammy had to wonder. Though it might not have shown on her face, Veal's deep fatigue was evident in the color of her gem. As someone who couldn't win a single game without placing such a burden on one of Veal's class, was she really worthy of being called a friend? Her head throbbed. It was a flashback. Clammy realized as she stopped, holding her head in her hands. A girl and a puppet that wanted to be a person, joining pinkies and exchanging a promise. He, the puppet, Sora. Did he think that he would tie her down, tethered to the ground? One who should have been free to ascend unaided to the heavens? Why, Clammy, whatever is it? Clammy replied, averting her eyes from the friend who doubled back after noticing she'd stopped. See, I'm sorry. If only I'd moved more skillfully. Clammy. Elvengard. It was an enormous country that wielded its overwhelming magical supremacy over almost 30% of the planet's landmass. It was the greatest nation in the world, with over twice the might of its closest competitor, Hardenfell. Its foundations were like a fortress, defying attempts to find a crack. No, that was just another excuse. Still thinking of those two, Clammy tightened her fists. If they had been the ones playing, they could have done it without magic. Clammy? Gradually, she and Veal chipped away at those who held the reins of distribution, trade, and rights, undercutting power beneath a veil of secrecy, and in the end at a tiny ant tunnel, a hole thinner than a needle, opened. But at this rate, they could never. And never mind that, they could have won more grandly. The more little games they stacked, the more catastrophe loomed. If the powers that be ever caught on to their machinations, they would be squashed in a blink. Somewhere there had to be a Sora-style solution, to end it all with a single, unexpected strike. And yet, all I do is cause trouble for you, and we make no progress worth Clammy! As the skin of her palm began to split, pierced by her fingernail and her clenched fist, a quiet but authoritative voice stopped her. Clammy, why, you can't be them. I know. She looked down. She knew it. It was futile. Even as she tried to imitate Sora, it was Sora and Shiro together that made blank. Humanity's greatest gamer. She would have to find her own. Why no. Why no. You understand nothing, I'm afraid. Her thoughts interrupted, and Clammy looked up. I don't know what sort of memories you received from Sora, but I do purport to know a bit about who Sora is. In that forest city, amidst its fantastic illumination, Veal's expression turned serious. Why, Mr. Sora used you because he couldn't do it himself. Fair enough, but look at it. And he used me because you couldn't do it yourself. They are not the only one who is too. To begin with, attempting to win the game without relying on me would be like unto Mr. Sora or Miss Shiro playing alone. Gee, Clammy, why, you can rely on me, and you ought to. Just as blank was a team, Clammy and Veal were, too. If they were able to produce the same results together, then to whom must they apologize? But all I do is weigh you down. I haven't... Why, it's all because of you that I have the will. And also, holding her friend's hand, Veal glowed. I'm perfectly aware, you know, of how every day you'll summon those memories from Mr. Sora and try to uncover all of Mr. Sora and Miss Shiro's strategies to make them your own. Her eyes suddenly clouded with a somber tinge, and because of that, you haven't slept in forever. If you don't sleep, I won't sleep. If you will try, then I will try. Why, if you think I am tired, don't you see you are the same? With these words, Phil peered into Clammy's face, stroking the dark circles even the night couldn't conceal. She'd whispered like a mother chiding her child. Clammy, if you would worry about my fatigue, tonight is the night. You must promise me that you will sleep properly. Why, if we carry on like this, we'll both collapse. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. Why is it? That's not it. Phil pouted comically. Her cheeks puffed out. Don't you think there's something else you should be saying? You're right. Thank you, Fee. Smiling and nodding, Phil took Clammy's hand and wove her right again. Meanwhile, in any case, I doubt that the reason Mr. Sora entrusted us with the downfall of Elvingard was such a grand and noble one. Why don't you agree? The two then recalled the man's face, his sloppy, slovenly face, and they quoted him together. Man, politics, rights, overthrowing a big country is such a pain in the ass. I'll leave it to you guys. Smirking, the pair leaped back into the sky. And on the outskirts of the city, the companions had secured a little room with 2 parallel beds. Fio, having removed her hood and changed into her bedclothes, repeated her admonishment. Now, Clammy, tonight you must sleep. Well, then may I ask you one thing? Yes. Why, ask anything you like. Clammy, hugging a pillow, averted her gaze uncomfortably. Could you sleep with me? As Fio's face lit up unknowingly, Clammy blushed and shouted. No, it's just Sora's memories are keeping me up. So I'm thinking of how Sora holds Shiro's. If you held my hand, it might. It's all Sora's fault, you know. Yes. It's all Sora's fault, Mr. Sora's fault. Why then, you don't need to be ashamed. Just like before, if you have a bad dream, you can jump right under my blanket. I said, no, it's not like that. Everything, it's all Sora's fault. Why must I? And so on, carping on in a low mumble, she went ahead and climbed into Fio's bed. Clammy, as she lay with her back turned, Fio smiled and spoke. Clammy, is there anything else you want? Why, I could sing a lullaby. I suppose I want you to stop teasing me and let me rest. Really? Why, you don't want stroking or fluffing. Well, if you want to. Okay. Why, I want very much, and I'll go ahead. The sensation of Fio's hand combing her hair, Clemmy felt the tension leave her body. The familiar feeling, from all those past times she'd cried, reminded her of the past. All those days she'd been kept by the Nirvalans as a slave. Even with Fio on her side, she'd amassed any number of unpleasant memories, and they'd made her want to cry, made her want to die. But she'd decided never to feel sorry for herself. She'd held back the tears with all her might, releasing them all in that bed, back in those days long ago. But now, having touched Sora's memories, the time had long since passed when she should. Clemmy, are you asleep? Fio's voice was soft, so as not to wake her friend if she was. It put the stopper on Sora's memories, just as they were about to come rushing back. Not yet. What? If you can't sleep, I was thinking of talking a bit until you can. Do you mind? Well, no. But what? The serious tone underscoring Phil's words, Clammy nodded, confused. Clammy, why it seems as if you trust Mr. Sora unconditionally. Phil whispered with concern. To be honest, that worries me. Are the memories Mr. Sora gave you actually real? Sora and Shiro had a flugel. With the covenants, it was possible to falsify memories. Perhaps they had forged memories and then given them to Clammy to manipulate her. That was what Phil was implying. But it's possible I'm being tricked, you mean? That does indeed sound like something Sora would do. Clammy smirked. Would sound like it, rather. Clammy tittered at Field's dubious expression. You needn't worry. The one who's overestimating Sora is not me, but Yuffie. Memory flashed through the back of Clammy's mind. Sora's memory was drenched in awful recollections. But now, hey Fee, do you know why the word genius exists? What? Is to maintain that a puppet is not a person. One who defies understanding is called a genius. With approval, a genius. Without a monster. As spoken by most people, it is actually a slight, implying that since it's a different beast from themselves, there is nothing more to say. The majority comforted themselves thus and gave up. But that puppet was different. Yes, he really was just a puppet. He was just a dumbass. But he refused to be just a puppet. He admired the real thing he saw before him. And then he endured, suffering in ways from which it would be hard to believe one could recover. Clammy, in her sleepy daze, swam through Sora's memories. A way to fly without being able to fly. How could you tell whether or not it was possible? By trying to fly, and seeing if you fell. That was the only way. After falling so many times, his body, his heart shattered. Even so, he stood up, with that silly grin of his, as if nothing had happened. His heart bleeding, his teeth grinding, looking at his sister, he stood up. In that, the typical image of genius's effortlessness was nowhere to be found. It really is tough to have a smart little sister, isn't it, big brother? Sora is terribly awkward, and that is why he could catch up. No, even overtake. He stands at a place anyone can reach if they are a person, while being a fool just as he says. As a fool, he has run to catch up with the real thing he admired, enduring over and over. Just a fool. As Clammy spoke, Field's hand kept stroking her, guiding her deeper and deeper beneath a state of consciousness. What you need is just a little. But to go all the way, you need enough resolve to make one feel faint. And in her submerged consciousness, Clammy remembered the tournament for the monarchy. Sora's words. When it comes to conflict and slaughter, we're seasoned experts compared to you. Visceral memory overlapped the recollection. Memory of blood on a hand, at which he looked down with vacant eyes. Memories of a puppet that wanted only to be a person. He really is just so awkward. Can't even tell a single lie. You know, Clammy? Only the breath of sleep answered. Deep in thought, Theo stroked the girl, who had drifted off, with words still falling from her lips. One more thing, she muttered, but left the thought incomplete. Theo pondered, looking at the ceiling. She recalled the man Clammy had assessed as awkward, incapable of telling a single lie. The face of the man who seemed to walk in clothes woven of lies, bold, frivolous, eliciting caution from all who saw him. Oh, finally, Theo got there. I see. A liar who can't lie. That's what she meant. A man whose life even Clammy deemed awe-inspiring. One who had weathered such experiences. Why would he elicit caution? Theo felt a long-held unease dissipate. Having reached her answer, imagining a future in which Clammy believed, of which Sora and his sister deemed, a minute smile split across her face, and the ghost of sleep that eluded her returned to close her eyes. I can't wait, she thought, for the first time in a long time, a really and truly long time, too, many years to count. She faded into a deep sleep. That's the end of the prologue. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure why they only made this a prologue. That was definitely the length of a chapter. If I had to guess, it's probably because the rest of the book is going to be more focused on Sora and the crew, and this is just what's happening in the elfin world. I find it curious that she hid such an ability, because it wasn't evident, because I'd watched the anime before this. I mean, I had to listen to the audiobook too, but it wasn't evident that she was as powerful as she was. But I guess given the facts, it can be understood. Also, I really like their relationship as close friends. I mean, I guess you could potentially see them as romantic partners. I don't know. Well, anyways, that's the end of the prologue, and that's going to be where I end this video. It's pretty late where I'm recording right now, and my family's asleep right now, and I don't want to wake any of them up or keep them up. So, with that, goodbye, and I suppose I'll see you all next time.